Welcome to the Bitter Upper Lip. Thank you once again for joining me as always. So today we're moving from Illinois back down to the deep south, and we're actually going to be checking out a beer from Baby Brewery in Macon. What we're going to be checking out today is from Fall Line Brewing Company. This is their Norsehart American Style IPA. This comes in at 6.3% ABV, and the IBUs are listed at 61. Excuse me. So, little background, Fall Line, victim of circumstance a little bit. Fall Line was open for 6 days, and then they more or less had to close down because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And thankfully, it was just their kitchen. They've still been doing what a lot of other breweries across the country have been doing, which is curbside pickups and everything. And good on them. They actually started a charitable drive to start trying to benefit service workers in the Middle Georgia area through the United Way. And I'll actually put a link to their charity drive information in the bottom description of this video if you're interested. But yeah, I mean they're literally less than a year old, less than a few months old actually. So I have not had any of their beer before ever, as a lot of people haven't. But this beer is called Norsehart, and I was curious, like, oh, all right, that's a very specific moniker. And doing some research on this beer, I found out that the name Norsehart comes from the fact that they make this IPA with Norwegian Kveik. And I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but essentially Kveik translates to yeast in Norwegian. And Kveik has traditionally been used in Norway for, centuries as the yeast of choice for them making farmhouse style beers. So saison, grisettes, beers like that. So pretty damn cool Viking yeast. Who would have thought? I've never even heard of Kveik before researching this beer, but apparently it's kind of like the new hot thing that a lot of breweries are trying out. The yeast has a lot of very interesting properties aside from the fact that it imparts some classic farmhouse style beer characters on the beer. Apparently it's very, very resilient. A lot of times when you're making beer, you have to dump the yeast in at a very specific point when the wort has cooled down, because if any of y'all have worked with bread or anything, you'll kill the yeast and it's not going to do what it wants to do. Kveik, apparently you can put it in at much, much higher temperatures than normally, and apparently it activates much quicker as well. So it's this very unique, lot of personality kind of yeast that sounds like a lot of breweries, much like Fall Line, are having some fun experimenting with. So really no idea what to expect from this. Can't find anything on the hop bill. It just is listed as an American style IPA. That's it, not West Coast, New England or anything. Big props to Fall Line, because I don't know if you can see here on the bottom of the can, but this was canned on, let's see, March 26th of this year. So it's literally a month and 2 days old at the time that I'm making this review. You can see there on the bottom of the can. So already a big plus that they're putting dates on their cans, especially for IPAs. So, yeah. So I've gotten a final completed today. What better excuse to get a cold one? So let's get this in the glass and see what it's about. Nice looking color already. Pour a little harder here, get a little bit of head on it. And up in the can, so. All right, so I'm already smelling it. I know I'm jumping the gun, but it's already wafting, so that's a good sign. Bubbles coming out nice and tight. There's some big fatter bubbles on it. Head is a bit of an off-white kind of yellow, almost like a bit of like a kind of vanilla pudding color to it. Yeah, nice looking head. Very murky IPA, actually. I don't know if this is unfiltered or what the malt bill is, if they've got wheat, oats, or anything like that, but it's kind of looking like a New England style IPA a little bit. Color is a very, very deep orange. amber color. Um, it's a gorgeous looking beer. Let's bring that up so y'all can see it. It is, again, it is murky, so I'm not really able to see into it in terms of like the bubbles on the bottom. I'm seeing a little bit, but this is a pretty opaque orange, yellow, amber colored beer. So it's already revealed a bit, sniffed it, but let's go ahead and get an official whiff on it. So automatically, I can definitely smell the farmhouse style coming off of it. It definitely has some of those kind of saison or aromatic notes to it. Kind of like people say it kind of smells like wet hay, but in a good way. There's a bit of a kind of a funk to it a little bit. I am smelling some sweetness to it too, and some very interesting hop smells that I'm not really used to getting on IPA. I'm smelling like more like kind of berries. Like I'm smelling strawberries in this. There's some grassiness, and I think that's probably playing off some of the Kveik yeast that's playing into it. Again, that farmhouse funk that you would expect. There's also slight citrus note to it too. Not like an orange or anything. Almost kind of smells like limes or lemons coming out of this. Not getting any tangerines. Not really getting any kind of grapefruit notes. Not really getting any malt characteristics on the nose, like any biscuit crack or anything like that. So this is a very complex smelling beer. All right, well, without further ado, let's get some lips on it. Cheers. Wow, that is. There's a lot going on in that. Give me a moment. All right. So I'm getting this very interesting kind of battle at the front of the tongue. I am getting some very initial kind of like hop bitterness that I would expect from an IPA, but it's like there's this tug of war equally of tasting kind of that farmhouse, that kind of funk sting that you kind of get if you're drinking kind of like a really like dank saison or something. And weirdly enough, they're not cloying over each other at all. Like I can taste both of them. Yeah, it's like they're just kind of layered on each other rather than, it's not like I'm tasting hop one moment and then farmhouse funk in the other. A little bit of sweetness on those. I'm not getting much citrus in the front tongue. I'm getting it a little bit more in the middle. Back of the tongue, I'm getting a big malt presence on the finish. Yeah, so like front of the tongue, I'm getting most of the funk. Middle of the tongue, I'm getting more hop character. It's pretty subdued though. I'm not. It's not as bombastic as I would expect this to be for an IPA, and I don't know if that might have something to do with the fact that the way the Kveik is working on this, but I'm tasting like in my mouth. I'm tasting the telltale signs that I have a beer in my mouth that has a heavy hop presence. I'm kind of getting a little of that residual hop bitterness, little kind of oily texture going on. I'm almost going to be willing to guess that whatever the hop bill is on this, I'd like to think they purposely picked hops that had very grassy, earthy characters to complement some of the funk that you're getting from the Kveik. Because again, citrus notes are almost non-existent in this, and I'm getting very, again, like lime and lemon. I'm not getting orange. I'm not getting tangerines, grapefruits, pineapple, nothing like that whatsoever. Carbonation is really good, especially if you're someone that is used to drinking saisons, grisettes that usually have, you know, big in your face carbonation notes. And the finish is again interesting because on the back of the tongue, I'm getting a very, very heavy malt presence. It's a very kind of light malt, like it's tasting very biscuity, very kind of crackery. It's not tasting like toast, pumpernickel, anything like that. Um, yeah. So this is this is a very, very complex beer just because there's just a lot going on in that. I'm enjoying it. I feel like I need to have a conversation with some of the crew at Fallen and some of the brewmasters because I can't really put my finger on the fact that it's a delicious beer. It's very unique tasting. It's a I had no idea what to expect going in tasting this. And even having drunk it, I'm still thinking through it. So take that as you will. It's a cool testament that I'm kind of going through the flavor labyrinth right now, still trying to figure this out. And again, also, I'm not sure exactly what hops they used on this, when, what time, what quantity they put into the boil. Did they dry hop or anything? Just from my taste, and again, not knowing anything empirically about that, this is not. This does not taste like a pale ale or a India pale ale to me because there is some noteworthy hop presence to it. But in terms of the concentration, this to me is more kind of like a Nordic farmhouse style pale ale to me than an India pale ale because just off the taste, if I had this, I personally wouldn't find it to be fitting the description of an IPA. But again, having this very bombastic yeast in this with its very unique character, I also don't know how that's playing off my palate. Now, as I just said earlier when I was drinking it, on the front of the tongue, I definitely taste a good hop presence in conjunction with the funkiness of the yeast. However, the sensation that I'm used to having with IPAs, even very, I'd say like regular middle of the road IPAs, I'm used to there being a much more lingering hop finish, a much kind of bigger wave of the brightness that's going to come from hops. And I don't get that in this. This is a delicious beer. I would definitely enjoy trying this again, especially on tap. And definitely after I've been able to hopefully talk with some staff at Fall Line and get their thoughts on the creative process behind it. And in general, I'd just say this is just a cool fucking beer. I mean, I didn't even really know that Norwegian Kveik was a thing before this, so I would encourage anyone just to expand your palate as a craft beer drinker, and as always, just to try something different. Like kudos to them for just stepping out and saying we're going to make an IPA with Viking yeast because why not? That's what craft beer is for, is just doing wild and crazy shit like that. And then hoping that people like the beer as much as you do and you can sell a few cases. So, yeah, kudos to Fall Line. That's a very tasty beer. Um, it's a beer that I would go to if I was wanting something different. It's a beer that I go to if I was looking for a more farmhouse style type beer. It is not a beer I would go to if I was specifically looking to get an IPA. So take that as you will. So as always, everyone, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions about fall line, have you had any experience with Norwegian Kveik before? Am I completely butchering the way that Kveik is pronounced? I'll put it in the bottom and you can correct me later. But if you like this video, a thumbs up is always appreciated. And if you want to keep hearing me gab about future down the road, go ahead and subscribe. So as always, everyone, until next time, keep your mind sharp, your heart clean, and your upper lip bitter. We'll see you next time.